Weather cooperated at least for today. That's good. So welcome to ClinEd 2. ClinEd 2, this class is clinical skills, clinical preparatory skills. It's basically a therapeutic exercise class, but it's expanded into a movement assessment and treatment class. So we'll be doing therapeutic exercises and talking about the various types of therapeutic exercises that there are, but we're really going to be looking at movement assessment and what can we do as therapists to differentiate things from a movement perspective. Therapeutic exercise is not just weight training. It's not just hypertrophy training. We're going to explore the various ways to approach it from a motor control perspective, from a stabilization training perspective, as well as a hypertrophy perspective. So you guys have Blackboard access. You see you pull down, you can pull up the syllabus. We'll just have a quick chat about the syllabus and then we'll get into the lecture. So you can see that both I and Dr. DiCorrado co-teach this class. And we have two lab assistants who just happen to step out. We have Tom and Sasha. They'll be back in just a moment. They're trying to find a clicker that works. None of these clickers are working right now.
Probably because Sasha's Alex.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's Alex. Yeah.
She goes by both names, so we tend to call her Sasha, just so you're wondering.
Yeah, and we just established that we'll go by Alex, and of course I just didn't do that. But, so we have a lot of hands on deck because there's a lot of manual to this. And what we'll do is you'll see that as we go through the slides, we're centering in what we're calling our musculoskeletal universal slide, which that was first presented in basics? You saw the universal slide? Okay, so essentially we're going to unpack the universal slide throughout the whole curriculum. And we're going to be looking at the movement assessment and driver assessment in this class. And in MS1, MS2, you're going to be looking at a lot of the pathoanatomical layers. So the classes pair off of each other so that you can get a good thorough assessment, evaluation, and treatment plan centered all around that universal slide. So in the syllabus, you see that you have the whole list of objectives, and you know the grading policies, how all that goes. As we move our way down, you can see the way the schedule is set up. We have it set up, divided somewhat into body region. We're partially paired with MS1. So like we'll be covering shoulder today and you'll be covering shoulder tomorrow. But we do cover spine in this class and you don't get spine until MS2. So it's not going to be a direct pairing, but we tried to pair it as much as we could. Okay. You'll see that you have several assignments. Some of the assignments are for you to kind of start to build up that central place to be able to refer for practicals and for exams. So you will be handing in several charts. The first chart that we're going to cover some of the material today and some of the material in next class. So the information that's not covered here, you're going to have to look into the texts, look into the PowerPoints to try and fill out the rest of that chart, and then we'll address that chart further. The reason for the charts is to help you to differentiate. This class is a differential diagnosis class. So you're going to be responsible to look at the different, how you will dose things differently, how you will design exercises differently depending on the need of the person. So you have to have a good understanding of that. So the charts are to help you to understand that, and the charts are essentially a big study tool for your practical. Because the movement charts that will be coming later, you'll do one for the shoulder, one for the low back, one for the hip. You will see the different types of assessments that you'll do to assess the difference between motor control, stability, and strength. And then from that, you'll pair different exercises that address the specific need in those categories. So the charts are to help you kind of see the big picture, to carry the concepts through the various regions of the body, and it's a great study tool for the practical. Okay. You also have an independent component. You have a CAT, where you will be pulling up a couple research articles, breaking down the research articles, and summarizing them. And Dr. DiCorrado gave you an example of what that looks like.
Very similar to what you did in critical inquiry. This one's a little bit different. In critical inquiry, you just analyzed one. What we want you to do now is find 1 to 3 and put them side by side in a CAT so that you're now drawing conclusions from multiple articles. One article just shows us one population for one specific test. exercises for a rotator cuff injury, you can't just read one article on it. You need multiple articles and you have to start synthesizing the data that they give you. A lot of times you're gonna find one article that says, this exercise is really great, and another article that says, no, it's really not. So your best bet conclusion at that point is to say, the research is inconclusive. That's okay to say that. But also looking at the populations, it showed it was great in a young population, it showed it was not so great in an elderly population. What does that tell us clinically? So that's what we're really looking for when you do this CAT. Now you're looking at more than one article and how you're drawing conclusions based on what those are telling you. I think the example I gave you is 2 side by side, so you can get a little bit of a clue on how to structure that.
Did you want to talk about the presentation, or I'll leave that?
The project?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the project, I think this is gonna be the first time that you guys actually work with a real patient rather than just portraying a patient, so this should be a little bit more fun for you guys. What Dr. Rodriguez has talked about is this differential that we're going through in this class, and we touched upon it in neuroscience, that when someone has a movement disorder, when we've done our screens and we're starting to go into a functional evaluation, there's different things that we do to tease out what the real cause is, one of which is that applying external stabilization. And then we have a flow that goes from there. This class is going to really focus on that chunk of that puzzle. Applying external stabilization, and if that helps, what do we do? If it doesn't help, what do we do? So your project is going to be evaluating someone in your life. You're going to be in a group, but someone in your life that is not in this class has a movement dysfunction. We all have movement dysfunction, so you should be able to find one relatively easily when you've been through in this class a little ways. You're going to find that person. You're going to perform the assessment that you learned here on camera so that we can see as a group what you did and how you discovered what their movement dysfunction was. You're going to develop an exercise plan for that person. Give them about 4 or 5 weeks or so to do this home exercise program, and then you're going to reevaluate them at the end of that on camera, and you're going to present that to us. We premiered this last year with last year's class, and we're really blown away by the differences we saw from the start to the finish. So it's really fun for you guys. You get your first real patient. We get to see that you know what you're doing, and your classmates can see how awesome you are at fixing people. So that's really it, right? And then you need research to back up what you're using in your exercise program. So hint, hint, you can do your CAT articles to support your project. Don't do double work. You have to, if you find someone with a shoulder dysfunction, find articles that are related to shoulder dysfunctions, and each group member should be doing a CAT based on that. And then, shockingly, that's what's going to build your exercise program for your patient. I think that's it. Did I get anything?
Thanks. Yep.
I'm trying to fix the clicker.
Yeah, oh yeah, this still doesn't work. Clicker issues. So the reason the project will make more sense as we go into the assessment today. So the only reason to talk about it so early is that the CAT will stitch you up for the project. So since we mentioned the CAT, because if at lunch you search your articles right away, I wanted you to be aware that it's going to need to pair with your. I know that motivated. That you need to pair with your patient. So you hold off.
We're trying to kill you. We're trying to help you.
Only exhaust them.
Just exhaust a little bit.
So that's basically the design. You will have the midterm, and you will have a midterm will be written, and then in the final you have a final practical and a final written. You will have proficiency checkouts that we will do week by week, and that's obviously going to be based on the techniques that we do the week prior. Okay,
Maybe it says, Friday, so it'll be when we're already at it.
Yeah. So we can be available, and people like to do this last year. If people are on campus earlier in the week or on an off week, and they want to get their checkout over with, then we can set up times and we can do checkouts prior if you want to do that, but that's optional.
Okay.
So we will be making us available and setting up times to be able to do it on instructional weekends, so we can get them all done while you are here. Okay. If you look at the texts, essentially this is all based on a central concept of differential diagnosis. All right. What we're trying to do and what school does in general, it gives you an introduction to the wide range of schools of thought that are out there. And we want to introduce you to multiple different perspectives on how to address therapy and how to address exercise. Therefore, there's a wide range of texts, and each text has a specific specialization. So we're using these texts as references because these are great authors and people that people look up to in the field. But we also wanted to give you a system to be able to work from. If we show you 7 different schools of thought, and you say, okay, I can discuss each individual school of thought, and you walk into the clinic and you go, now what? Then you hit a wall. So what we're doing is we created the universal concept, the universal slide, to give you a framework to work from. So this will be, it'll allow you to hit the ground running, one, in your project for this semester, but also in the clinic. What can you do to start to differentiate things right away? But then what we'll do in class is we'll dive into the individual topics to try and understand them a bit more. Okay? So there are a lot of different references, and I will also be posting articles that talk about some of the research supporting some of the different concepts that we will be covering. The main required text is the Kistner and Kolbe, because this is the text that is most used across the country, and it is a text that's referenced for the boards. So we want to pull information from that text. If you notice, it is the 6th edition. There is actually a 7th edition, and we didn't change it to the 7th edition for this year because the library just bought an ebook copy of the 6th edition. And I was told that multiple people can check that book out, hoping that's true. And if not, you can download the PDF and then put it back. So hopefully everyone can have access to the e-version of the 6th edition. If you really want to read the 7th edition, I'm sure it's improved and probably even better. And if there are concepts that are different, then we can happy to talk about it. But I didn't read the 7th edition yet. The other reference text, you have Kinetic Control, and this is a book published by Mark Comerford and Sarah Mottram. Mark Comerford and Sarah Mottram founded a movement control system, and what they did is they compiled a lot of the research and information coming out of Australia, going all the way from some of the deep muscle work that they've done, and then integrating some of the work of Shirley Sahrmann and some other movement people. So it is a great text that actually summarizes several schools of thought. So we use this as a reference text. It's a pretty in-depth text. It's actually very good, but it's pretty in-depth and it's an expensive book, so I don't put it on the required list. However, you have some required reading associated with that. So what I've done, I'm not, copyright infringement, I'm not allowed to copy it and hand out copies of it. So instead, I've created a lending library. So I have 2 copies of the 1st and 2nd chapter that you're welcome to sign out. What you do with it when it's signed out is totally up to you, unbeknownst to me. I have no idea what happens. I assume you just read it, memorize it, and hand it back in. So you can sign it out today, borrow it. You're allowed to sign it out for a day and then return it so your other classmates can have it. And it will also be available in the PT office. So I encourage you to all sign it out and read it and memorize it because it is a great background. It is even more in depth than what we're going into. But it helps to build on the concepts that we're talking about. So when we're talking about something, you're like, I'm not sure I fully get that, I want to read more about it, it's in here. I will not hold you to the intense detail that these chapters go into, but it can give you a better understanding. Okay? And he cites, some of it is somewhat of his own creation, or brain thoughts, but it really is a compilation of other people's work. And I will be saying the author's name as we go through it. Because I do want you to be familiar with where this comes from, all right? Who published this? Whose idea this is? And he does take a lot from Shirley Sahrmann, who's an American author, and we will be using their concepts. And then we have we reference Shirley Sahrmann's text because we use some of her movement assessment and exercises from a motor control perspective. And then there's the Hall and Brody is just another therapeutic exercise text. Different universities, some use Kistner and Kolbe, some use Hall and Brody. So there's a couple references just from that text. Okay, but your main one is the Kistner and Kolbe. And it is a great text. They did a good job of pulling in some of the more contemporary research.
To get your presentation back up. The computer froze. That's why the clicker wasn't working.
Ah.
That was what all of my analysis.
Nice. We're up and running. All right, so we're going to start with the intro. And what you'll see is the slides have a lot of information on them. And that's